Are we celebrating Independence Day on the wrong day? Hi Founder fans, Jason here, and today's founder is John Adams, although more accurately, today's founder is the date, July 2nd, 1776. But to explain, we have to go back a month. On June 7th, 1776, Richard Henry Lee of Virginia rose on the floor of the Continental Congress at the Pennsylvania State House and motioned to resolve that, quote, "These united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states." He therefore recommended that they absolve themselves of all allegiance to the British Crown. Now, many people approved this at the time, but they said, hold on, let's table this a little bit for several reasons. First of all, there were delegates who were not present who were pro-independence and should be there for the vote. Also, the colonists, the delegates representing their colonies, took their instructions from the assemblies very seriously. And not all of the future states had told their delegates that they could approve independence. In fact, when we voted for independence, the state of New York abstained, awaiting further instructions. But they needed these to come in so that they could get enough people to make it pretty much unanimous. Additionally, there were some things that would have to get done. I mean, you can't just be a country, you need certain things. For example, a government and other countries to be friends with. So what they did is they formed 3 committees to discuss what was called the Lee Resolution, named after Richard Henry Lee, who made this initial statement. And what they did is they made these 3 committees. One was to write a Declaration of Independence. One was to start a new government, because if we don't have the King of England, we need to do something. And that would become the Articles of Confederation. And another committee was formed to make treaties and alliances with other nations, to help us win the war we were fighting, and then have trade partners and allies after the war was won. So these were all set into motion, and several weeks go by, and it was on July 2nd, 1776, that the delegates gathered in the room in Independence Hall, what we now know as Independence Hall, what was then called the Pennsylvania State House in Philadelphia, and they voted to be an independent nation. Technically, they all thought they were going to be 13 separate independent nations, but that's a different tale. Either way, it was on July 2nd, 1776, that the delegates sat quietly in a room, thinking to themselves, what have we done? The king is not going to be happy about this. And I want to read you a quote here from John Adams that he wrote home to Abigail discussing after independence was declared on July 2nd. And I'm going to quote him, and he's talking about July 2nd, not the 4th. And he says, quote, "I am apt to believe that it will be celebrated by succeeding generations as the great anniversary festival. It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shows, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of this continent to the other, from this time forward forevermore." And that's interesting for several reasons. First of all, it is essentially how we still celebrate 4th of July. And he also had the foresight to see one end of this continent to the other. He could tell, and many of the founders could tell, that this idea of liberty and freedom was going to spread across the nation. Now, just to follow up here, why do we celebrate on the 4th of July? Well, because after they voted for independence on the 2nd, they spent 2 days talking about the Declaration itself. They edited out a quarter of it, while Thomas Jefferson sat quietly in the corner, not happy about what was going on. And then they approved it. And therefore, the Declaration was dated July 4th, and people around the country saw the date on the Declaration. And from there forward, we began celebrating independence on July 4th, and we still do. And that is Independence Day, because it's been that way for 200 years. But I always like to take a minute on July 2nd to think about, no, today's the day we declared independence. But 2 days from now, we can have our barbecue. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I inspired you to look up a little bit more about the American Revolution. Definitely hit like and subscribe if you like content like this. I put out videos 5 days a week. So thank you so much, and I look forward to bringing you another video tomorrow.